Now we are going to cover the most important question of any interview. In my experience, this is the most asked question in the interviews. What is the difference between an abstract class and an interface? At least four. Why four? Because this is a very important question and it is good to create a good impression on interviewer by telling as much as you can. So let's explore the differences one by one. First difference is abstract class contains both declaration and definition of methods. Let me show you the code. See, employee class has two methods, project and role. One is declared and another is defined with the body. On the other hand, interface should contain only declaration of methods. Let me show you the code. See, here we have two methods, project and manager 1, and both are just declared. There is no body of these methods. Now, there is one very interesting point here. As per the latest versions of C#, now C# allows you to define the body of the interface methods also. So method body is possible in interfaces. But why Microsoft allowed definition or body for methods in the interfaces? The reason, suppose you have a very big project employee management system. Initially you created this iEmployee interface there with the declared method. But after 1 year, you realize that this manager 1 is a concrete method now. Okay, its implementation is common. Now what to do? If you will change this interface to abstract class, then a lot of code change will be required in your big project, right? And that will lead to errors also. Therefore, Microsoft allowed method bodies inside the interfaces also. Then you can just define the method here. But remember, when you are creating the projects from scratch, never use method bodies inside interfaces. Interfaces are for declaration only. If method body is required, rather use abstract classes. That's why I have explained interface should contain declaration of methods only, right? That is the first difference. Second difference is quite obvious and easy. Abstract classes uses abstract keyword and interfaces uses interface keyword. Now, one very important difference is abstract class does not support multiple inheritance in C#, whereas interface support multiple inheritance. Okay, let me show you the same in code. See, when we are trying multiple inheritance via abstract class, then here at the bottom is this error. When we are deriving from multiple classes employee and employee 1 in the derived class permanent employee, where if I show you the code, like it is giving error, right? It is showing the error, compile time error. But in case of interfaces, if I will show you, there is no error. It is working fine with multiple interfaces, iEmployee 1 and iEmployee 2. One last difference is abstract classes can have constructors. See, we have constructor employee 1 in abstract class, but interfaces do not have constructors. See, employee 1 constructor is giving error. It's a compile time error. It is not possible. So here is the summary list of all the differences which we have discussed. Please try to memorize at least 3 of them and one difference, because one difference is not sufficient in interviews. When to use interface and when abstract classes in real applications, real projects. First, let's check when to use interface. Suppose in your project you have two classes, permanent employee and contractual employee. Now you know both these kinds of employee will have some email ID and some manager, right? So you will create one interface iEmployee and just declare methods assign email and assign manager here. Later, you will inherit this iEmployee interface in both these permanent employee and contractual employee classes. Now, why interfaces are the right choice here? Because every employee must have some email ID or manager, so the declaration in employee interface is mandatory. But the implementation is not clear right now, right? The manager can be different, the email can be different. So, an interface is a good choice when you know a method has to be there in the class, but it can be implemented differently by independent derived classes. That's when we use interfaces. It acts like a contract. Next, we will see when to use abstract classes. When to use abstract classes and not interfaces. For example, with classes permanent employee and contractual employee, here we have an abstract base class employee dress, where dress code is an abstract method because that implementation we don't know right now, because it depends. Dress code is depends whether employee is a male or female. Implementation will differ, right? But this employee dress color method value will always be blue in any case, whether male or female. Therefore, we know the implementation, and that's why we defined the method body here. So when to use abstract class? Abstract class is a good choice when you are sure some methods are concrete or defined and must be implemented in the same way in all the derived classes. Now, one more thing here. Normally, we prefer interfaces because they gives us the flexibility to modify the behavior of methods at later stage. So that's why we prefer interfaces. Why to create interfaces in real applications? Let's see the example first. Suppose we are creating an employee management system project. Okay. In our project, we have two classes, permanent employee and contractual employee. Now we will create one interface iEmployee which will have only declaration of this method assign email. Now our basic question is why we are declaring it here. Anyway, we have to define this method in the classes, right? We are declaring them. The reason is to maintain the consistency. Otherwise, you will create assign email in permanent employee and some other developer will create set email or some other method name in contractual employee. Maybe both the methods are doing the same thing, but since their names are same, they are but they are different. Therefore, they will create the inconsistency, right? So here are some benefits of interfaces. Interfaces will help in defining the contract of the system and maintain the consistency. Second benefit is unit testing. It is easy for application to do unit tests if they have interfaces. Then interfaces are used for implementing dependency injection in .NET Core. Can we define body of interfaces methods? When to define methods in interfaces? So if you see this code of interface, here we can define a method inside an interface like this and no error will come. Okay, so the answer is yes. From C# 8.0, it is possible to put method bodies inside interfaces. But why Microsoft allowed body for methods in interfaces? The reason is, suppose you have a project employee management system. Initially, you created this iEmployee interface with role method declaration only. Okay. But after 1 year, you realized that this role method should be concrete method and you should define it now. Now, if you will convert this interface to a abstract class, then a lot of code change will be required, right? So that's why Microsoft allowed to add body for interfaces also. But remember, when you are creating the project from the scratch, use abstract classes if your method have bodies. Can you create an instance of an abstract class or an interface instance or object? Can you create? Yeah, this is a thinking question. Before answering these kind of questions, think, right? What is the purpose of abstract class and interface? And the answer is they both are for acting as the base classes, right? So here, if we have one base class like employee class and interface like iEmployee, and then we are when we try to create the object of both of them like this, then the .NET compiler will give build error, right? It is not possible. So the answer is no. Abstract class and interface purpose is to act as the base classes via inheritance. Their object or instance creation is not possible. Do interface can have a constructor? The answer is no. Interface can only be used for inheritance, so constructor is not required. See, when we are creating the constructor for interfaces like this, then it is saying interfaces cannot contain instance constructors. That is the answer. Do abstract class have constructors in C#? You will think abstract class is for inheritance and we cannot create its object, right? So the answer is no. We cannot have constructor in abstract class, but here is the twist. Yes, abstract class can have constructors. For example, we have this employee abstract class with constructor and we inherit this in the permanent employee class. Okay. Now when we create the object of the permanent employee class, derived class, first the constructor of the base class will be called. Then only the constructor of the derived class will be called. That's why we can have a constructor in the abstract class, and that's why we get the output which is written inside the base class constructor here. What is the difference between abstraction and abstract class? Abstraction means showing only required things and hiding the background details. I already explained this in previous videos. Abstract class is one of the ways to implement abstraction. Remember, it's not the only way, but one of the way. That's it. Short and simple difference. A scenario-based question. Can abstract class be sealed or static in C#? See the code here. We tried to mark abstract class as sealed and compiler is showing the error. So the answer is no. Abstract class are used for inheritance, but sealed and static both will not allow the class to be inherited. Therefore, it is not possible. Remember, always try to give reason in detail. Can you declare abstract methods as private in C#? Abstract methods means only declaration, no definition. And abstract methods must be implemented in derived classes. Okay, but if we make them private, then they cannot be accessible outside the base class, right? Then both things are opposite. If we try to do this, then here is the code and here is the compiler error. It is not possible. Therefore, the answer is no. Abstract methods are only declaration and they must be implemented in the derived class. Therefore, they cannot be private. We can create hundreds of scenarios based question like this. Does abstract class support multiple inheritance? See the code. To abstract class we try to inherit in derived class. Here at the bottom and the compiler error is showing. So the answer is no. Only maximum one abstract class can be used for inheritance, but multiple interfaces can be used, right? That is not exactly multiple inheritance, but an alternative way of it. I hope it's clear.